The crazy thing about Mortal Kombat 2 is that there's actually a good movie hidden in it. The tournament finally happens, the action is bigger, the characters fans actually want are present on screen, and Karl Urban absolutely nails Johnny Cage. And for a brief moment, this actually feels like the Mortal Kombat movie that fans have been asking for years. But then the writing kicks back in, and this movie becomes a weird roller coaster of something really awesome happens on screen, and it's immediately followed by something dumb. And this is one of the most inconsistent blockbuster movies I've seen in a while. Because in 1 minute, I'm watching a genuinely awesome fight scene happen on screen, while I'm also laughing at the dynamic between Johnny Cage and Kano, all while thinking, okay, now this feels like Mortal Kombat. Then 5 minutes later, the movie completely ruins its own stakes, rushes through major character moments, characters die with almost no impact, other characters come back from the dead, so the death basically means nothing, and reminds me that Hollywood still doesn't fully understand why this franchise should work. And yes, full spoilers ahead. One thing I will give this movie credit for, it finally gives us the Mortal Kombat tournament. And with that alone, it already makes it better than the 2021 movie. This time, it's structured like a 5v5 tournament hosted in the outer world, with Shao Kahn basically stacking the deck against Earthrealm from the beginning. And this setup and atmosphere, it works. Outer World looks way better this time around, and the movie finally feels like it embraces the larger mythology instead of teasing it for 2 hours. The fights are also a huge improvement. They're faster, more brutal, and less awkwardly edited, and way more willing to lean into the insanity of the Mortal Kombat world. And the fatalities are ridiculous in the absolute best way. And the people who created this movie finally understand this is what the Mortal Kombat movie should look like. Violent and over-the-top fun. And speaking of fun, we have Karl Urban as Johnny Cage. And that has to be perfect casting. Karl Urban really brings his best performance, and he understood the assignment. This version of Johnny Cage feels like a washed-up Hollywood action star trying way too hard to convince everyone he's still cool. And it works almost every single time. He brings the energy to the movie that the first film desperately lacked. But the real surprise is Kano absolutely dominating with his presence yet again in this movie. The way they bring him back is super convoluted and quick, with there even being dialogue after being like, yeah, we probably didn't need to bring him back alive. But the real reason you brought him back is because he is peak. And I don't care how or why, it works. Josh Lawson, who plays Kano, absolutely steals the show every time he's on screen. And his dynamic with Johnny Cage is one of the best parts of the film. Every time they're on screen together, the movie becomes way more entertaining. It's like the writers almost accidentally figured out, oh wow, this should be the tone of a Mortal Kombat movie. Because whenever the movie stops trying to be actively serious, it works. But honestly, one of my favorite parts of this movie is the Liu Kang versus Kung Lao fight. This has to be the best Mortal Kombat fight we have ever seen on screen. Not just because of the choreography and the fact that you could tell that they know martial arts, but the visuals and the fatality at the end. But also because the emotional weight behind this fight. Liu Kang doesn't want to fight Kung Lao. That's his brother, one of the only characters in this universe that he has a deep connection with. And after everything that happened in the first movie, watching Liu Kang forced to put his brother down again holds so much emotional weight. And honestly, this fight alone is probably worth the price of admission. Like literally, this fight was so hyped, there was people in my theater who got up and were shouting. But we can't talk about these fights without talking about the reason these fights are happening. And that's Shao Kahn. Now, the movie does something really great, and in the beginning of the movie, it shows pretty much the end of a previous Mortal Kombat tournament. And not only does that set the pace for the film, but it also does a great job of introducing Shao Kahn as this intimidating and heavy brute that knows how to win a fight. Every time he's on screen, he really does hold a lot of presence, and Martin Ford has done an amazing job playing this character. And unlike the villain of the first one, Shao Kahn actually feels dangerous. And with us talking about the villain of the last movie, I want to segue and talk about our hero from the last movie. And that's going to be Cole Young. And I gotta say, when I saw Cole, I got a little excited because it's cool to see characters who you got a little attachment to return for the second one. And this is one of the few times in a long time in a cinematic universe like this where we've seen a main character from the first one kind of end up on the sideline in the second one. And I do think the writers did a great job of hearing the feedback in the first one and implementing a good story for Cole in the second one, because I'm gonna be straight up, I enjoyed how his story ended. Now, if you guys don't know, Cole goes up against Shao Kahn in, I believe, the second or third fight of Mortal Kombat. And Cole actually defeats Shao Kahn, which I really didn't think they were going to do. I thought they were just going to have him get wiped in the first 10 seconds and be like, yeah, we understand. this guy sucks. But no, this kind of gives Cole Young his flowers and is like, hey, listen, there was a reason he was the main character in the first one. He can defeat these villains. But then Shao Kahn's immortality kicks in, and he kicks Cole's head in, and then sweeps it into a vat of acid. Which, yeah, I mean, not the perfect ending to Cole's story, but like, he got the dub, kind of. And let's be real, that was one of the coolest stage fights in the movie. Like, the stage setting in it with the acid was super dope. And it was a somewhat respectful end to a character that a lot of people didn't like. And this is where the movie kind of takes a detour, and it struggles with consequences. Because after Cole Young's death, a lot of these deaths either feel rushed or non-consequential. And there's a specific moment like when Jax is fighting Shao Kahn. Although it is a really cool fight scene and you have multiple people going after Shao Kahn just to be able to get the amulet, his death is fairly quick, with it not even being a really cool fatality. And if it didn't keep bringing these characters back from the dead, I would have been like, wow, that's a very impactful death there. That one hurts. But in my head, I couldn't help think, well, they're probably just going to bring him back in the next one. And that destroys the tension and destroys the whole mortal part of Mortal Kombat. Like, even Liu Kang's sacrifice at the end when he's letting Sonya release Katana from her chains. Like, that was a great moment, and you could tell Shao Kahn only beat him because he was focused on multiple things. All right, this means nothing. You turning into a fire dragon, super sick, kind of just means we're going to see you again. And I know the games do this often. Like, I'm not oblivious to that. The games bring back characters frequently. But it would be cool if we saw more of the generational characters instead of just, hey, resurrection over resurrection. Because a movie like this needs weight and it needs stakes. And because without that, these tournaments don't mean anything. And speaking of things that don't matter, we have Noob Saibot. What a huge fumble of this character. And don't get me wrong, Joe Tasman kills it in this performance and he still has that presence when he's on screen. But he's literally there just to get Scorpion back in the fight so that they can have their fight at the very end of the movie. Which, why not just bring them back? We're bringing back all these other characters. Why not incorporate them better in the story? Instead of them just being fighting in the background while Johnny Cage and Kano try to get the amulet. They never really give Noob Saibot an ability to become his own character. This just feels like pure fan service than actually adding anything meaningful to the story. Which perfectly sums up this movie's biggest issue. It understands what fans recognize, but not always why those things matter. And that's the frustrating thing about Mortal Kombat 2. There are moments where it genuinely feels like this franchise is starting to figure itself out. The tournament works, Johnny Cage works, Kano works, Shao Kahn works. Some of these action scenes are legitimately awesome, but then the movie immediately falls back into rushed storytelling, paper-thin character development, and lore decisions that completely ruin the stakes. And it feels like two different movies that are constantly fighting each other. And they never really find that balance between these two different concepts. So yes, Mortal Kombat 2 is better than the previous film. Honestly, that part isn't even debatable. The action is stronger, and the tournament finally exists. Johnny Cage and Kano absolutely steal the show, and there are stretches of this film that genuinely feel like a Mortal Kombat game. But this movie is still messy, and still way too obsessed with fan service than creating a movie that's gonna pull new fans in. Like, yes, give the fans what they want, but also give them an opportunity for this franchise to go by making it more accessible to everybody. Because once this all settles down, you actually realize how little weight all of this actually has. It is a movie with some awesome fight scenes that is trying to hold together a shaky story. But somehow, that makes it the most accurate Mortal Kombat movie that Hollywood has ever made. But that is my take, you guys. What did you guys think of the Mortal Kombat 2 movie? Let me know in the comments below. Did having the tournament actually present this time save this franchise? Or do you think the writing is still holding back what this movie could be? And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe and turn notifications on. We have movie and show analysis dropping every single week, so you're not going to want to miss out on future videos. But that is going to be it for me, you guys. My name is Ben James. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!